FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. And, well, we know about all that's going on with the IRS, everything that they've done and how they prey on cash-strapped Americans. We've got our friend Craig Bergman on. He's been on the show before, produced a movie. And, Craig, welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be back.
So what's going on here with the IRS? What is it you wanted to highlight this week about what's happening with Americans and their refunds?
Well, the big story is, of course, that nobody knows how this Obamacare is affecting them. Millions of people are calling in to the IRS. They are refusing to answer approximately, by their own admission, and it could be a lot higher, 60% of the phone calls and inquiries that are coming in, and the deadline is looming at us in just a few days. And people are going to be getting extensions into October dealing with this. It's going to be a political nightmare. And of course, the IRS, the most famous customer service organization on earth, next to maybe, say, a Nazi prison guard, is just, they don't seem to care. They are asking for more money. And of course, they have thousands of their own employees who owe back taxes. So it's just the gift that keeps on giving, I'm afraid.
Right. And this guy, Kasikian, who's running the show right now, who's been caught in numerous untruths, we'll put it charitably as that. He just came on recently and said he was overheard in the past days, said that all of the backlog for nonprofits has been cleared up. And we know, in fact, that this is totally not true. So what else do they have in store?
Well, it's the same situation you have with Hillary Clinton. We just found out that, she was using her iPad along with her phone for her emails and just inadvertently wiped both of those things that keep online storage in the cloud. So the IRS can't keep their emails. Hillary can't keep their emails, but they've cleared up all the Tea Party problems and all the nonprofit problems. I think when Trey Gowdy was interviewing him, I think it was Trey Gowdy, perhaps it was Paul Ryan, and he said, I have been a bureaucrat for 30 years and no one has ever accused me of lying. And the congressman looked right down and said, I think you're lying to me right now.
Yeah. Well, how do you know when they're lying, right? Their lips are moving.
Yeah, the lips move.
Isn't it great?
But, we need to abolish this system. Not only is it corrupt, not only is it inefficient, it costs $900 billion in this economy just to do the paperwork to collect the other $3.1 trillion that they bring in. It costs almost 20% of the system to make the system work. We have appliances now that are more efficient than that, cars that are more efficient than that. What are we doing with a 19th century socialist tax system?
You got me, and there seems to be no impetus to get rid of it. There's only one guy who's running on a platform to get rid of it so far, right?
Well, there's technically 3, depending on how lenient you want to be. There's one candidate who wants to abolish it and go to the fair tax. That's Governor of Arkansas, former Governor Mike Huckabee. Then there's Ted Cruz, who says he wants to get rid of it, but he wants to implement a flat tax, which means keeping it, and all its employees and all its burdensome regulations. The only thing a flat tax does is give a few rich people to pay a little less and a few poor people to pay a little more. A flat tax is a completely regressive tax system, and it still violates your First, Fourth, Fifth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendment rights. But at least in principle, Ted Cruz says he wants to abolish it. And then Rand Paul has somewhat of his father's abolitionist leanings, but he doesn't like to talk about it as much as his dad did. So do we call that 1.5 total when we add up their score?
Yeah, well, I don't know. You trust Huckabee?
I trust him on the fair tax. I don't know that he has a history of cutting taxes, but then again, the last Republican that actually cut taxes, not slowed the growth of spending. There's a big difference between, hey, we need $10 billion for this, but we're only going to get $9 billion, but last year we had $7 billion. That's a $2 billion increase, not a $1 billion cut. But the last president that actually cut the budget and balanced it was Calvin Coolidge. And before him, there was only one other, Andrew Jackson. So of the 40-some presidents we've had, only 2 of them have actually cut the budget. So I don't hold out much hope for any of them.
Wait. I think Harding cut spending too. You can't, I don't know that he balanced the budget. He definitely cut spending dramatically in 1920. So give a little bit of credit here, but can't trust any of them is the point, right?
Well, if we're talking about the early 1900s with our question marks, then that means we've gone 100 years without a real cut.
Yeah. Well, once they got the amendment through, the 16th Amendment, right? Is that it?
Yep.
That was kind of the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah, we went away from tariffs and trade and sales taxes. And, you know, the main reason, the main reason we did it, of course, is prohibition.
Right.
30% of the government's payroll was on the sales tax on liquor. Well, when you outlaw the sale of liquor, you outlaw 30% of your revenue. You have to make it up somewhere. The rest of the trades and unions said, not from us. And so they all pitched in together to get an income tax and made a deal with the devil.
Hey, it was only going to be on the rich, right? The income tax was just on the rich.
Only 1% on the people who made more than $1 million a year. That's what they signed into law.
Right. And that's worked out extremely well, as we see now.
Well, Wilson raised it 4 years later to pay for World War I, and he raised it for 1 year to 97% above $1 million. 97%.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was temporary.
Yeah, it only lasted a year. But what's to stop them from going to 100? I mean, a tax rate of 97% today would make people's heads explode.
Oh, yes. Well, we know what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with politicians, and who the heck? You can't trust them, right?
Well, that's the real problem is we've got about 12 of them who would like to be the nominee of the Republican Party, the supposedly fiscally conservative party, and there's not one of them who's actually got 100% record out there of actually reining in spending and getting this thing under control.
Yeah. Well, so the best we can hope is for some guy that's going to maybe slow it down. Is that what it comes down to?
Well, for me personally, it's why I like Mike, is if we passed the fair tax and we changed the how we tax, then I think it would be easier to finally win the how much we tax battle. But I don't think we can win the how much until we've won the how battle. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, I don't like this Huckabee lets criminals out of jail who then go and kill people, and he is totally not to be trusted. If he's our hope, then we're really in trouble. We can forget about it. So,
yeah, I mean, I look at this and I always tell people, you know, when they say, well, who's your favorite candidate? I say, well, it would be Rand Huckacruz.
Yeah, Rand Huckacruz.
But he ain't running, so we're going to have to narrow it down.
Yeah, this Huckabee's a big phony. You know, he just let criminals out of jail who killed again when he was governor of Arkansas. And nope, this guy is no good. Maybe he likes this fair tax, but look, it's the spending. You're not going to, it doesn't matter. Milton Friedman always said, it doesn't matter how you tax, as long as the spending is out of control, the tax don't matter. And I'm afraid it's a chicken and egg, but as long as the spending is rampant, they'll figure out the taxes to raise the money necessary to finance all the programs. So unless you get somebody out there who's going to take an axe to all these programs, it just isn't going to matter. And nobody's going to do that because the American public is too dumbed down and will not put up.
Well, they're too dependent on it. Yeah. I mean, even in my home state of Iowa, we have the sacred ethanol tax rebate that's making the price of food and everything go up so that we can ruin our engines by putting alcohol instead of gasoline in them. But I think the point I really want to make with you and other people listening is, and I will disagree with Mr. Milton Friedman on this. I think when we try to have the cut spending fight, the how much fight, everyone's looking for their sacred cow, and they're not going to let it happen, which is why I think we need to have the how fight first. Because once people see a 23% sales tax, and they know that's it. There's no Social Security tax. There's no withholding. There's nothing. This is the tax you pay every time you buy something. I think then we will have a lot more friends on our side saying, all right, what can we cut? This is ridiculous.
Well,
and so I would just like to encourage people to have the how fight and table the how much.
I think it's part of the same fight, and you're just never going to be able to do it. Got to get people to understand that it's not an unlimited well in Washington that everybody pays for it. And unless you moderate your demands on the big piggy bank in Washington, which isn't really a piggy bank, we all pay for it. Unless you do that.
Well, if we could end up paying for it the way that Argentina did, or the Weimar Republic, and or even Rome, and we certainly don't want to do that. But history is replete with peoples who never won the how much fight. It was always more till the system broke. And we know that's what the liberals want. They want to break it. That's the Cloward-Piven strategy. They want 51% on welfare and 51% voting for forever, because then they can break the American system and reform it into their utopian system. And we all know that that ends in tyranny.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, they're really out for. Fact of the matter is that the fundamental misunderstanding of the populace about how an economy grows, until that is cured, you're just not going to make any progress. You're just not. Well,
yeah, we have to get rid of the Keynesian philosophy and return to a Adam Smith philosophy. But I think that's really, to borrow a phrase from Obama, outside the pay grade of most of the candidates running, which is, again, why I always fall back on the consumption tax. Because if we can make it obvious to a fourth grader when they go in to buy a lollipop how much the tax is, I think you will change attitudes.
Well, I think unless they understand that there is no Santa Claus, there's just no hope here. You could change the taxes system all day long, but nothing is going to happen. And, with the quality of the Congress that we have now, forget it. I mean, these people are just a criminal underclass that are looting the Treasury for their own benefit.
No, you're exactly right. That's what Thomas Jefferson warned us about when he said very eloquently, if I can get his exact thing, when the people realize that they can borrow from the future, the game's over, because they'll just borrow from the future. Even this budget deal they just did that supposedly balances the budget in 10 years. Do you think in 2 years the Congress is going to be bound by the one that this Congress just passed? No.
No, they never are. We know that.
They never are.
No, of course not. No way. And that's the whole problem with it, right? Is that as long as you can put off till tomorrow paying for what you're doing today, then you're never going to address the situation. And that's where we're at here today, Craig.
Well, it is. And that's why, these presidential candidates that are flocking to my home state of Iowa, we're going to beat them up on it. We're going to ask these tough questions of them. And we're going to tell the rest of the people in America, hey, these are the people not even answering the question. These are the people answering it wrong. And these are the few left that you should choose from.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you get into the issue of how much difference will the president really make in the whole equation? You saw how much difference Reagan made. That's a tough one.
It is, but you have to remember, Reagan never had a Congress. The only time since Eisenhower that we've had full control was 4 years under Bush, and unfortunately, he was spending money on a war, and his domestic policy suffered.
Yeah. Well, compassionate conservatism worked wonders, didn't it?
No.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a misguided, misbegotten policy. Brought us prescription drug coverage that no one wanted, that no one was happy with once they got. What about Obamacare here? What's the general consensus? They don't seem to want to repeal it, and yet it's a failure that's doubled and tripled the cost of medical insurance. Right, Craig?
Well, Ronald Reagan said very famously, the closest thing to immortality this side of heaven is a government program.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
He's not kidding. I mean, we have not repealed anything. We're still paying, and everyone jokes about it, on our cell phones, the Spanish-American war tax.
That's right. Well, that got knocked off. Part of it did by the courts. Yeah. The courts finally repealed it. You couldn't even get Congress to do it.
Didn't.
No, the court did. The court had to get rid of it. Isn't it ridiculous?
Yeah.
The court.
It is, and we do not want an oligarchy by black robe tyrants, as Jefferson said. So we need to hold these elected leaders accountable. We need to say, hey, Ted, saying get rid of the IRS, but you want a flat tax is not enough. Rand, coasting on your father's coattails is not enough. Mike, you got a lot of baggage in the past you're going to have to deal with because there's people who just don't trust you. And one of them has got to fix their ship and get it sailworthy, or we're sunk. That's just it.
Who's it going to be here? What about Scott Walker here? We don't. He's
in my opinion, Scott Walker is Jeb Bush, who's not telling you the truth.
Well, he did take on the unions here. We got to look at that.
Yes, he did. So did Chris Christie.
Chris Christie made the appearance of taking on the unions. He never really took them on in the final analysis. He said, he said some nasty things to them, but in the final analysis, nothing happened in New Jersey. They're still going bankrupt.
Well, of course they are, in California and Illinois and all the major Democrat strongholds along with it.
Right. And all the states are going bankrupt in one. They're just a question of how fast they're going bankrupt. So, even here in Iowa with everything, we have a $7 billion a year budget, which is very small compared to some of the states, but half of that comes from the federal government. We're only raising $3 or $4 billion in taxes on Iowans. The rest is borrowed, even if it looks balanced on paper. Right. Hey, in Florida here, got the same population as New York State, budget's half of New York State's, but still got way too much government in the state. So there is no state that is a paragon of virtue, as it were. Solutions need solutions. So Scott Walker did come up with some solutions, but there's a thing called electability. And then you get back to the general appalling state of economic education on the part of the electorate. There isn't any, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's what a Elizabeth Warren or an extremist Hillary Clinton type, that's what they're counting on.
Yeah.
They're counting on the fact that the Republicans will either not run on their principles and try to run in the mushy middle, or will be unable to articulate their principles enough and defend them enough that a soundbite will attack them.
Mm-hmm. And it's worked in the past. You know what they say? Will Rogers said, ignorance got us into this mess, and ignorance will get us out. But I'm not that optimistic here.
I don't think I am either.
You know, it's real bad situation, and I don't see any white knights on shining horse.
No, we don't have a great communicator. Yeah. We don't have someone who has a majority consensus view. We've got 12 candidates who each have about 10% of the vote.
Well, hey, I don't believe, what about Hillary Clinton? I don't believe that she's going to be the candidate in the final analysis. Do you?
I still say it's up in the air. Who else is a Democrat seriously putting out there? Elizabeth Warren's not on the ground setting anything up. None of the state party leadership is behind her. None of the machine is. Unless we have a Republican who can really, government is not the solution, it's the problem, rhetoric level against her. If we have someone who says, well, me too, like Romney did or McCain did, yeah, she'll win.
I don't think that she's going to be the candidate. I think she's got the big boy in the White House and his minions fighting her every step of the way. As soon as they find someone who's somewhat viable, they'll put everything behind that person. Maybe it'll be O'Malley. Who the heck knows? Yeah,
it could be.
I just think she's got a laundry list of problems. This email thing keeps getting worse and worse. What do you think of this email thing?
Well, like I was saying earlier in the program, we had the IRS who the dog ate their homework, and then we found it, but nothing's happened. I am a firm believer that you can survive any scandal in the world if your opponent isn't willing to bring it up. And it doesn't matter if Trey Gowdy's bringing it up. It doesn't matter if Rush Limbaugh or you or I are bringing it up. We're preaching to the choir.
Right.
If the mainstream media isn't bringing it up, and if our Republican nominee isn't bringing it up, then you're going to lose. I mean, you got to fight.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about Walker. He is a fighter. You got to give him credit for that. Unlike the rest.
He's been through a bunch.
Right? Who else out there is a fighter?
Yeah.
Who else out there? Craig, we got to run. Tell us your website, how we find out more about you.
The best one to go to is our IRS movie, unfairmovie.com. Get a copy of the DVD, educate yourself, and share it with a friend.
All right. Hey, well, Craig, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on, and good luck on the fight. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thank you very much.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.